So, Stefan, the floor is yours. I'm
Yes, thank you very
happy
much.
you're back.
Yeah, it's good to be back this afternoon. Maybe a couple of people were here this morning as well, so welcome back. And for the others, nice to meet you virtually. So my name is Stephen. I do career orientation work. I have done it for almost 20 years, and I work principally with people like yourselves who are in research or science of some type and applied engineering, and then are thinking about moving into industry at some point. And we're for this short session today, we're going to talk about LinkedIn, and you can see from the title that we're going to cover why people love to hate LinkedIn and why it's probably still a good idea to use it. So we're going to explore that relationship. Um, I'm going to say straight up that as few as 10 years ago, I had pretty mixed feelings about LinkedIn. But now I've spent way too much time with it, and I've helped too many people over many workshops, many seminars, many one-on-ones. And I've come to begrudgingly appreciate it, just like you might feel a little bad about driving your car because it has impacts on the environment, but you're still happy that you have it. So you don't have to take a horse or walk 20K just to get where you want to go. So it's a bit like that. LinkedIn is maybe what we consider a necessary evil. I love this image, and probably all of you are up to date on the big telescope, so you know Hubble is no longer the bee's knees, but I still have a great fondness for it. Amazing project, as you know. And this image is for me something as a reminder because social media are simply ways of reflecting how we see the rest of the world and how they see us. So we're so used to these days virtual communication that we don't even, it doesn't even uh, seem particularly important to us. But in fact, it's relatively new and it's still continuing to evolve. And a lot of you in the age group who are listening spend all your time on a phone. And that phone has become absolutely central to your communication hub. So social media is, whether we like it or not, something that's going to be here to stay. And that's true professionally as well as it is personally on a social level. But when we talk about professional communication, we're not considering YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, X, or Instagram. For 95% of professionals, these are not relevant. People who use Instagram, one of my daughters do, are what the UK loves to call creatives. People in the arts, people in performance, people who make their living from imagery, so e-marketing experts, people like that. Yes. For a material scientist, a corrosion scientist, researcher, not so much. Microbiologist either. Okay. So whether we like it or not, the main platform for us to consider is and will continue to be LinkedIn. And as you know, different platforms require different looks. So this is just a little clan die to get us started. You see the same person on the left. This is a professional comic and TV host, Conan. And you notice that he has a slightly different look on LinkedIn than he does on Tinder. Um, I'll let you decide which look you're going for. To the right, you've got an American actress. She looks a little more serious on all four of hers, in my opinion. But either way, what you can see is that we need to choose how to put forward which aspects of our life and where. Yeah. So there is an amazing site that's actually free to use, and you'll see the reference at the bottom called PhotoFeeler. And you'll probably be interested to know that this is a spin-off from someone's PhD work on how people respond to images. In other words, we put a photo out, how do people respond to that photo? And it's very dependent on context. The same photo, even this, fairly good-looking one of Conan O'Brien here on the top left, would absolutely not make any positive impact on Instagram. I'm not sure his choice for Instagram is much better, but you see my point. The vice versa is just as important. So how the image impacts people's perception of us also depends on the title we put in there And, our experience, sometimes even our age and our gender will come into all of that. But what's really fascinating is they have analyzed responses to hundreds of thousands of photos now. So you can quickly create a profile on PhotoFeeler and upload several different photos and choose where you want them to be, in what context you want to use them. You might even put photos that are for social purposes. I'm not terribly interested in that, but this site will allow you to do that as well as to check photos for your CV, resume, or LinkedIn. So one of the big complaints that I hear all the time, particularly from scientists, I must say, is they just don't like social media in general. Okay. Now, that again, I have great sympathy for, but once again, in the interconnected world where we're all involved with, it's pretty hard to avoid to some extent. You may even be forced to use some social media in your job to communicate with people in other centers, to upload data, to crunch numbers together. You may not have a choice about it. You may be given secure channels and proprietary ones, but one way or another, you're probably doing a lot of communication using the internet. Now, having said that, if you're going to consider professional networking as an activity that takes some of your time and effort, I would strongly suggest you also take the time and effort to create a very good profile. And I'll give you some tips on that. Similarly, people are frustrated because they feel like all the sites tend towards the same thing. Now, I want to distinguish here, first of all, activity on the site versus the purpose and the orientation of the site. The reason this is important is because LinkedIn until 2016 was a much more sober, much more, in a way, calm atmosphere. Since 2016, Microsoft, who bought it, had been trying to push up user interaction. And it's only since then that they put these little like buttons and made it very easy to do all the emoticon stuff. And I am the first person to get very énervé with that. I mean, I hate when people act on LinkedIn the same way they act on Facebook. But studies show that the more, clicks, the more likes, the more interactions that anyone gets online, the better it is for the company running that platform. The more interactivity they get, the more ads they can sell, etc. So it is something that we can call white noise. It is there. It's something to deal with. The good news is that the main purpose and the main approach on LinkedIn has retained its professional quality compared to other sites. Some people find the navigation quite difficult to get around. They continue to tweak this. I personally think moving around people's profiles today is actually harder than it was a few years ago, because as soon as you click on a subsection like somebody's skills, it closes all the other sections. That's not something I think is helpful for a recruiter or somebody who wants to get to know what you're good at, but that's a choice they're making. They do a lot of studies and in-depth surveys with their users, so things continue to evolve. The content saturation, unfortunately, is there to stay. You have to curate it a bit. In other words, choose which groups to join, which blogs to follow, and which things you're going to respond to. But that is true, as we know, of every single site that you might be on or interested in. Some people think there's low quality content. Again, it largely depends on how you use the platform and who you're connected to. It's still a platform which favors professionals and techies in particular. It was started by engineers. It's still much more a community of people with higher education, with some experience, with some technical know-how, than it is a generalized platform just to exchange views. So hopefully, by working on refining your network and also choosing which areas you spend time on, you can improve the quality of your experience. This lack of depth, as I say, is something you can also help to change. So when you find things that are important to you, don't just give a click, and a little thumbs up. Think about making an actual comment. even if it's just 3 or 4 lines. When you find out that someone's got a work anniversary, you don't have to just use one of the standard phrases there. You can actually make a comment, and the algorithms on LinkedIn start to reward you. And they'll start to suggest connections and people to follow that might improve the quality of the content that appears on your page as well. Some people, particularly in the science community, feel interestingly, another thing which bothers them about LinkedIn in particular is they feel like they have to be super polished. They have to be a kind of self-marketeer and push themselves forward, the most amazing photo, absolutely astonishing skills, wonderful about section. It's both true and false. You need to be authentic. You need to be complete in what you put forward, but you're not competing against people who did a business school. You're not competing against people who are in marketing. What you're competing against really is your own reluctance to be online. So it comes up to, your choice. It's a buy-in or an opt-out system. So no one's going to oblige you to be here, but if you are, I strongly suggest that you set up a very good, strong, all-star profile. And I can help you with that. And this will have a positive impact on your networking. It will have a positive impact, as I said this morning, on finding about new opportunities, preparing yourself for those because you will stay on top of trends. Nothing better than having a little chat or exchange between 2 or 3 people, one in Singapore, one in Toronto, a third in Sao Paulo. What's going on in your field? What do you see happening in terms of the politics, the economics, and the possibilities for what's around the corner? So this was the whole purpose, is the raison d'etre of LinkedIn. It was to facilitate this networking capacity between professionals. And at the time, it didn't exist. People in the younger age group don't realize this, but LinkedIn is a relatively newcomer to the social media world. And so Facebook had already been out there for a long time before, and many of the other kind of similar or related sorts of channels were there. But LinkedIn was really launched, and it's only been around since 2008. It was really launched for that purpose, is to give professionals a place to push forward and do a bit of self-marketing, yes, but in a way that's a lot easier for techies and for serious people. In other words, getting that information out means you don't have to push it down someone's throat later. Showing that you're good at all these different types of data crunching, showing that you can handle different types of spectroscopy, and you actually speak 4 human languages. You don't have to brag about this later. It's out there. It's right in front of them. Content sharing is another thing, and a lot of people, it's down the road before they feel comfortable with that, and that's not a problem. I would suggest avoiding simply forwarding things because it doesn't impress anyone, and most people can find that stuff on their own. So if you do put something forward from another source, at least take the time to make a comment and tell people why you find it intriguing, interesting, challenging, or why you disagree with it. When it comes to job search, again, this is a place that it's here to stay when it comes to anybody in the STEM fields, and for that matter, anyone with a master's degree in general onwards. It's huge and it's only getting bigger. And so therefore it attracts both candidates and recruiters. We're looking at over 1 billion users, my friends. This is, it's hard to imagine even managing a site like that. Thank goodness there's a very big team doing that. US, it won't surprise you, has about 1/4 of that number. What I thought was more interesting is when you start looking around, Western Europe has about 81 million. Brazil, on the other hand, all on its lonesome has 78 million. So granted, it's a very large country. Canada, I think, wins, that you guys get the golden ring. Officially, 27.4 million users of LinkedIn in a population of 40 million. Now, I'm just wondering, are you counting non-human users? Like how many moose, caribou? No, just kidding. But what I think is probably going on there, either we've got a problem in how the statistics are gathered, but more likely people have multiple accounts. But however you want to look at it, you can see that it's got a huge place in the professional life in each of these countries. Other places, a bit less, obviously, as you get into Africa, as you get into Southeast Asia, there are other websites that have taken off that connect people. LinkedIn is still there. It's still something, particularly for those of you who are planning to be mobile throughout your career, it's definitely something to pay attention to. Most users are in the age I'm talking about, 25 to 34 is the majority, and just under parity, about 44% women, 56% men. And this has changed quite radically in the last 10 years. It used to be about 30 to 70. So that for me is a hopeful sign. More women professionals are on the platform. So I think that's very good. There are a number of ways to use it. What's called passive networking is simply to have a very good profile. And many people are pleasantly surprised that once they have that, they already start being contacted by people. Not necessarily with a job offer, but that happens as well. It gives you better visibility. And here's an interesting thing about LinkedIn. As I said, they reward you. So once you have an all-star profile, if a recruiter is looking for somebody with even partially your profile, an all-star means that they will push your profile higher in the search results for recruiters. So that's a reward for spending a little bit of time. You don't have to spend money, if that makes sense. Well, Yolanda's getting excited. Yeah, hi. And feel free to jump in with a question. I am allowing time for it, but if something is bothering you right away, let me know. So you can also follow leaders. And this is very important, particularly those, even this morning we talked about this, when you're not sure what you want to do next, look at what other people are doing. Someone who went to your school, who's 5 years ahead of you, someone who's working in that amazing startup. Where did they start? LinkedIn is great for that. Career stories are everywhere here. You can start to follow them. You can start to connect with them, specifically when you get into active networking mode. And that's where you consciously set out to grow your network by 20 to 30%, which is my strong recommendation during transition phase. So how do you do that? Principally by joining groups, which we're going to come to in a minute. So LinkedIn is no longer a nice to have, specifically during job transitions, my friends. 84 to 94% of recruiters worldwide, but particularly in Europe, North America, and Central and Northern Africa as well, are using this platform to confirm or simply to seek out good profiles. What happens typically is you apply for the job, and if they consider that you might be worth a second look, you might be in the 30% of those applications they consider are useful or interesting, they will almost instantly go to your LinkedIn, which is why I recommend putting a link at the top of your CV or resume that takes them directly to your LinkedIn profile so they don't mess around. And if you happen to have a super exotic, stunning name like Stephen Fisher, and you don't put that link, you're going to find out that there are 10,000 Stephen Fishers across all the Germanophone world. So if I don't give a link to my particular LinkedIn profile, they may never find me. So personal and background photos do matter. Profiles with good photos will get anywhere from 6 to 10 times more responses. And that's not just people clicking on and looking at it, but also sending messages to you and asking for connections. A compelling headline, and that's a little bit that goes just underneath your name, should not have your current job title. We've got that in 2 other places at least. What it should have are your specializations. You have 127 characters, I think, these days. So you need to come up with something that's compelling. Talk about your specializations. And then you get into storytelling mode with your about section. And for those of you who are here, I'm happy to give you a little early Christmas present. When I send Noemi the slides, I'm going to give you what I call a cheat sheet. Don't share it with anybody else. And this will help you get up to all-star level. But I'm also going to send you a really good article from MIT in Boston that talks about the importance of the about section and why this is our first opportunity really to speak from the heart in the application process. A lot of scientists are frustrated when they go through the whole application process for industry, because they feel like they're dealing with people who don't understand their work, don't see their value. And then on top of it, they have this pressure to try to sell themselves. So the good news is if you do this part correctly, once again, you've already given information which you then don't have to insist on during the interview process. You can simply amplify and give examples. LinkedIn also allows you to engage in these discussions. And for people who are less extroverted, this is great. You can respond and make great contacts and even develop relationships over time without actually having to do a lot of embarrassing, in-person sort of stuff, unless you choose to make that connection go 3D or live. I suggest thoughtful contributions, as I said earlier, not just clicking on things. So look for places and ways when something either upsets you or intrigues you, that's a place where you can make a comment. And don't be afraid that you're a young or inexperienced person. You still have a brain and you still care about what you're doing. So make comments, even just short ones that are genuine, and people will start to notice. And this will increase the value of the relationships you have. You can put up to 100 of your skills, my friends. That sounds enormous. The average scientist at the age of 30 should be able to fill out 50 with no problem. So you're going to have to think a little more widely, maybe do a little brainstorming. But as a matter of fact, it's one of the nice exercises which will also be a confidence builder as you get ready for your transition. So I'm giving you a very kind of succinct list of best practice. And after that, you're pretty much done. And this will be repeated on my little worksheet that I'll send to you. So full contact details, it's something people forget. It starts right at the top. You have to shorten your URL. All you have to do is do a right click to do that. But otherwise, it's a machine generated thing that goes on forever, longer than your arm. So that takes you about 30 seconds. Make sure there's an email there. And keep in mind, if you are in an active job search, you're probably putting out your telephone number in other places too, so consider putting it here. If anyone spams you or gives you inappropriate comments, by the way, or contacts, you could report them on LinkedIn, and it actually works. They investigate this and they report back to you. So it's not, again, a place that's as much at risk. You don't have to put a telephone number, however, but you can put an IM tag. They support various things. If you're on GitHub, you can also add that. So your tagline should have 3 specializations or 3 aspects of the work you do. In the case of corrosion research, that might be something about the kinds of stress testing that you do, the kind of monitoring tools that you use, the purpose of it. If you are keenly interested in environmental impacts, this would be a place to put that as well. And then you'll expand on this in the About section. So you want to have a good, clear photo. Even 5 years ago, we used to recommend something a little more serious looking, the monkey suit, etc. You don't necessarily need that anymore, but you do need something that's very clear and gives a good likeness of yourself. And don't be like my ex-boss and keep a photo that's 15 years out of date. As soon as somebody gets on a Zoom call with them, they're like, oh my gosh, you sent your grandpa. So, stay up to date, keep something that is nice, sure, but it's not either a beauty contest. What's interesting is the background photo also immediately personalizes this. So don't leave it blank. Choose a mountain view, that you love. Choose some kind of image from your work that's valuable to you, or choose simply an interesting matrix if you're into numbers and solving problems. But have something which will then be part of the story when you actually start getting into conversations with people. And then you want to list at least 30 skills. That's my little challenge for you, but most of you can get closer to 100 if you really dig down and use both soft and hard skills. Make sure you give detailed descriptions. This is probably one of the more annoying parts in the beginning because it does take time. For those of you who have a doctoral thesis, this counts as experience. So you just put the diploma part in your education section, but you detail the work you did for those 4 or 5 or 6 years under experience as well. So there's some tricks to this, but it's something little by little you can do. If you use my worksheet and you think about it, probably in less than 2 hours altogether, you could do that in chunks of half an hour. You can have an all-star profile. Don't hide in plain sight. Open all parts of your profile to public view while you're doing a transition. Afterwards, you can close it all back up if you want. You can even allow only your contacts to see your photo if that bothers you at this phase. But if a recruiter goes there and cannot contact you and cannot see who you are, then you're defeating the purpose. You probably don't need premium. It's a lot of money for most people, especially young graduates. It's about in Western Europe, it works out to about 50 US per month, a little bit more. I actually don't think the premium wall, the paywall, is a good thing. I think it actually works against open communication. I would suggest accepting just about anybody's connection request at this point. You know, it's good to grow your network. As I said earlier, if somebody acts in a way, unfortunately, at my age, they want to sell me real estate. Well, no, I'm going to disconnect from them and I'll report them if they start to hassle me. But honestly, most people are well behaved, and it's in their interest as well to get to know new people. So at this point, I would stay wide open and be generous. You know, you might think, well, what's the angle there? Why would they want to? Maybe simply because they want to think about moving to the part of the world you're in, or maybe because you went to a similar school they did, or did something at your undergraduate level that is similar to what they did. So I wouldn't be too fussy about it at this point. Similarly, you have to dare to reach out and invite people. Follow individuals and companies that you like. Recruiters even look at this when they're considering profiles. And then reach out to people in your domain, of course, but also beyond that in order to extend the range of your network. And comment, as I said before, thoughtful comments, not just likes. So once again, this is about fostering relationships. You may even get into a mode of collaboration or mentorship using LinkedIn. It certainly allows you to showcase your expertise in many different ways. Now, luckily for all of us, the reason why I'm so strongly suggesting that you don't need premium in order to build up your network and create a better status is quite simply, if you're willing to take a bit of time and you do some research. I already looked for corrosion-related groups, and you've got well over 20 or 30 just in Europe. So who is out there in material science in more general, or more specifically in corrosion science? Who's out there simply thinking about environmental impacts of science and research? What are the things you care most about? And then find out who else is out there. And you'll be pleasantly surprised, because we have over 1 million of what are called standard or open groups. And for these, all you need to do is send a request. Most of the groups will respond to you in less than 2 days. And generally, they'll respond positively. You can join as many groups as you want. They actually say up to 100 now. It used to be limited to 50. I honestly don't think at this stage, most of us want to be a member of more than 3 to 5 groups. I think I'm a member of about 10. And then if you see that a group is not interesting after a while, or people within the group are acting in a strange way, or they're trying to promote their services, well, you can simply, in 2 clicks, withdraw from that group. So you don't have much risk. The cool thing is, and here's something which may change, but for now, you have a back door. You can contact any other member of a group that you join, whether they're in premium or not. You don't have to be connected with them. So this is the back door to connecting with more senior people. And humans love things that are similar. So we all know we're alumni of the same school. We all know we are just super motivated by Rust and trusting in Rust and not letting our trust rust. And so therefore, we've got commonalities. We want to talk to other people who have similar interests, similar passions. That can be on the personal side with football, can certainly be on the professional side with what we're good at. But once you're a member of a group, you're part of an N club. And once you're part of that club, you can actually contact anybody in there. And that can be someone who's got 20 years more experience than you, or someone who's just starting. So I guess you know my answer here by now. They give you a few statistics. Some people get excited about that. The typical one is, instead of seeing, oh, someone from the University of Chicago Peoria has looked at your profile, it will tell you that it was Dr. Philip Blogs. And you're like, great. Okay. Personally, what does that matter? If Dr. Philip Blogs wants to contact me, he can. So I don't see that it's worth $600 a year. I think you'd be better off spending that money going to a professional conference. And maybe the one, Euromik is coming up. You also get to try some microbrewery beers in Denmark. I think that's a better use of your money, but that's me. Okay, so think about it. A lot of you, especially young graduates, you're going to get spammed by LinkedIn. They're trying to sell you these services. Hold off. Use the guidelines that I'll give you and that you can find in other places, and then see if you really need it. Like I said, you're going to spend some money during your transition. I don't think you need to give it to Microsoft. So it's also, and don't worry, we're getting close to the end of the slides. It is also an incredible platform for job search, whether we like it or not, and especially since COVID. To give the example of the Swiss job market, we used to have just two main platforms. Well, LinkedIn now has more job ads for the Swiss market than either one of the homegrown platforms. It's not my message to say don't use other job sites. If you're in Canada or the USA, for example, Glassdoor is very good for company profiles. This part of the world, not as much. By this part of the world, I mean Western Europe. And if you go further south, Africa and Latin America, it also varies. One site that's interesting everywhere in the world is Indeed. They have made themselves an international player in terms of job sites everywhere. So there are definitely regional ones. You've got monster.com also lives up to its name. It's also in 25 or 30 different company domains. So there are some international sites. There are often very localized sites. Brazil is a good example. Norway is another. And if you go by sector, gas and oil in Scandinavia, for example, you'll see ones with local languages and then ones with English language, because they're obviously recruiting internationally. So you've got a wide range of choices, but solid, central, and growing in importance is LinkedIn as a platform. And it does a number of things that other platforms do not do. It actually, again, rewards you. The more you search for a certain type of job, the more the system will send you additional jobs, companies, and people working in those jobs to follow. So it actually guides you. This is not something a typical job platform will do. They also make most of their money from recruiters, and recruiters, okay, I'm not going to be too nice right now, Naomi, but a lot of recruiters are a bit lazy. So if you give them a system that allows them to do most of their work for them, they're going to jump at it. And because it's not their money anyway, their company is paying for it. They love to go on to LinkedIn, type in a few parameters, and boom, the system does the work for them and sorts out all kinds of profiles. They love you to use the easy apply option, which, by the way, is not a good idea for most of you. But it has become a place where recruiters are heavily engaged, and they do like it, and they do feel rewarded by it. That's good news for you, because it means they're out there hunting for good profiles. And once again, the more you use it, the more it helps you. So here's a few stats for you. Close out. You've got over 40 million people using this platform, looking for jobs weekly. Meanwhile, you've got 58 million company profiles there. I think they've got room for one more. On average, you've got 15 million job openings. 40% of these are small to medium. And in some countries, it's up to 80%. In some sectors, it's over 90. So think about your specialization in corrosion research. A lot of those are going to be very small entities. But if they have a web presence on LinkedIn, it's going to be much easier for you to find them. Yeah. 87% worldwide of recruiters for technical and professional jobs are using LinkedIn. 93% of Fortune 500, if you don't know that term, these are the top 500 companies in North America in terms of the money and their market influence. Profiles with 5 or more skills are going to receive 17 times more views. The worst complaint any recruiter has is going to a bad profile. And there are over 5 million startups also using LinkedIn. So this is good news for those of you who are young grads. We had someone this morning, Mohammed, really interested in the idea of either launching himself independently or maybe getting involved in a startup. 50 or more endorsements. I wish I had 50. So I don't know where this statistic comes from. And I've been here a lot longer than most of you. So this one seems a little bit of a wobbler to me. But I do know if you have even 2 or 3 endorsements, people tend to read them, particularly if they're thinking about working with you or connecting with you. So more than 70% of people now are using this easy apply. And again, that's for lazy companies who are not interested in really looking at a full application. But for me, easy apply means quickly die. Because if you ever look at the form that Easy Apply creates, it's a really bad PDF. It has no image on it. It's all bullet points that are hard to read. Honestly, that's not how you want to be represented. So what I counsel people to do is once you find a job at a company you're interested in, go to the company website. Try to find the same ad there. And if you really can't find it anywhere else, consider doing a spontaneous application because the easy apply is just going to make you look pretty bad. And it's very easy for them to just click no. So it doesn't give you a chance to write a letter either. The platform continues to evolve, and so you should evolve with it. Interestingly, and luckily for you, you only need to spend a few minutes per week in order to be considered an active user. If you get on there twice, 15 minutes, then you're already in the club. So they're looking for ways to enhance things, and a lot of it is from your experience and any input you're willing to give them. They're going to be continually developing new tools for recruiters. That's how they make their money. And for you to be updated, you simply need to be there often enough that they send you the news and push forward new features. So it will enhance your professional networking, no question about it. It is designed for professionals. It does, of course, have some benefits and some challenges. I've tried to elicit both of those. You need to develop your own strategy, and essentially it means how much time and effort are you willing to put into it. Shoot me an email, or I guess those of you who are here already are going to get this. By default, you'll get my step-by-step guide to help you get up to All-Star, and then a couple of other handouts. So that's it for the formal part.